Hello. Welcome to Brain Meet Body. I'm Anne, and I'm super happy to introduce this class to you today. It's called Brain Meet Neutral Pelvis Body. I'm hoping that this is a place that you will start at because it's such an important thing to really know in your body for your movement experience. There's a lot of different muscles that attach to this pelvis, which is where your bottom and top half join together. So if it happens to be tilting in a certain way, that's going to have an impact up and down your chain. So if we can understand and really feel what a neutral pelvis is in our own body, and we can take that into our movement practice, whether you're doing yoga or running or playing with your kids, whatever it might be. So I first just want to go over some alignment points of the pelvis. So we'll tap ourselves here on these frontal hip points so you can feel where the bony structure protrudes the most. That's your anterior superior iliac spine, so ASIS for short, these pelvic hip points in front. And then you've got your pubic bone, right? So we've got pubic bone and then those frontal hip points. And ideally you want those to be on the same plane. So even if you've got flesh here, the bones are still on the same plane. Pubic bone, hip points. Like if you were lying down, you could take the flesh away, you could lay a plate and it would lay even on those 3 points, okay? So that's a triangle and you can remember that. That always wants to be together. And so you might notice if that's hard for you, you might notice if your pubic bone is behind those hip points, you have what's known as an anterior tilted pelvis, where it's tipping forward, right? So that is shortening the muscles of your low back, overworking them, and maybe also causing some overstretching here, which could also feel like tightness in the fronts of your hips, okay? So we want that pubic bone coming forward with the hip points in line, tailbone rooting down. Now maybe the other thing that could be happening is that that's really easy for you. Maybe your pubic bone is sitting more forward and you have what we know as a posterior tilt, where the tailbone's kind of tucking under. This can also look like for me, I kind of have a tendency to slump my shoulders and slouch, which sort of pushes my hips forward and everything sort of sinks down into that low back. So whether you're more anterior tilted or posterior tilted, or maybe you're blessed to have a nice neutral position to start with, we want to strengthen and mobilize the tissues around that pelvis so that the rest of us up and down can move freely. So with all of that being said, I'm going to have you come down to your back, and if you have some sort of a block, it could be a yoga block, or you could roll up a towel, or you could get a couch pillow, something that you can squeeze between your thighs. You're going to lower down onto your back. You're going to take the block and squeeze it between your thighs. Get it as high up in there as you can. And then feel here your structure settling down onto the floor. You've got the back of your skull, your shoulder blades, and your sacrum, which is at the base of your spine. It's these fused vertebrae, and it kind of feels like a triangular bone at the base of your spine. You can rock a little side to side to feel that that's pushing down into the floor. Now when those 3 points are on the same line, your skull, shoulder blades, and your sacrum, then your spine is set up for a nice neutral position where the lumbar, the low back, has a nice little curve, as well as the neck, right? And here we've got our neutral pelvis, pubic bone, hip points on the same plane. And let's feel here what an anterior tilted pelvis feels like. So energetically, meaning feet aren't actually going to move, but energetically pull your heels back towards your sit bones and feel your pubic bone going down. You're kind of tipping. The hip points are lifting up, and your low back is probably scrunching a little. And then we'll feel the opposite. Start to energetically push your feet away from you And the tailbone lifts up and the low back presses down into the floor. This is a posterior tilt. Okay, so we want the happy medium between that, where we've got that back rim of the pelvis, the sacrum, down on the floor. There's a nice neutral curve in the low back. And then we'll bring our hands onto our thighs. And the pelvis and spine move as a unit. So we will be lifting the pubic bone a little higher, but it's coming up as a unit. So start to push your thighs away, straighten your arms, push into your feet, reach your tailbone towards your heels, squeeze the tissues around your sit bones, also known as your glutes, your butt muscles, and lift the hips. You're not trying to get super high. Remember, we want to keep the length in our low back, and then try and push the thigh bones away from you, straightening your arms, keeping the low belly hugging in, creating some space in the front of your hip. And you can let your arms just relax down to your sides for a moment. And feel here, is there any compression in your low back? If there is, you might come down a little lower and then reach that tailbone more towards the top of your mat. Really squeeze the block, and there's an energy like your toes are trying to spin away from each other. Right toes trying to spin to the right, left toes trying to spin to the left. Really pressing down on the feet, but they're not actually moving. Feel that impact all the way up into your outer hips. Breathe here. We're not punching the front ribs to the ceiling. We're containing everything in around the spine, kind of like a vacuum seal. Good, and then bring your hands to your outer hips and just press in. Compress right and left in towards each other. Feel that low belly consolidating. Take another big breath into your ribs. And then as you exhale, slowly lower upper back, middle back, using the belly, pulling it in to gently control the lower all the way down. Good. Reconnect to that skull, shoulder blades, and sacrum. My teacher Laura calls that the triple S. It's a great way to check your posture. And just let everything settle again. Good, so in this type of yoga we're always working to strengthen the muscles that support us, like our core muscles first, before we move in bigger ways, so they're already lit up. So we're going to take this into some core work. We've got our glutes going, bringing the block between the knee joints. And then you're going to take your hands behind your head, and this is not your typical crunch with the elbows wide. I want you to hug the elbows in towards each other so they point up to the ceiling. And even that action, you start to feel the muscles beneath your arms start to light up around your armpits. Take a breath in. And then as you exhale, just lift the shoulder blades off the floor. Pull the low ribs together and down. Pull the low belly down. Gaze at your thighs, keeping the pelvis neutral. And then inhale and lower. Exhale and lift. So if you're really working this brain mapping right now, you can stay with this, not adding anything on, keeping it simple. Or you could extend your left leg, hugging the knee between the block. Put your left leg down, inhale and lower. Exhale and lift. Knit everything in and down. Your right leg extends. There's an energy of the left heel dragging back towards your bum, but nothing's changing. Right foot down, inhale and lower. Exhale and lift. The left leg extends. We're going to add a little hip into this. So the pelvis doesn't change, but we roll the left thigh externally. So the toes follow the leg, rolling out to the left, still hugging the block, still pulling the low belly down. Reach the toes back to the ceiling, left foot down, inhale and lower. Exhale and lift. Low ribs hugging in together. Right leg extends. You're supporting the weight of your head with your hands. And then roll that thigh externally. Keeping the pelvis neutral, dragging the left heel back energetically. Return the toes, foot down, inhale and lower. Staying focused. Exhale and lift. The left leg extends. We'll roll it out and then add just a little twist away from that leg to the right. Come back to center. Return the foot to neutral and down. Inhale, lower. Last one, exhale. Lift, knit everything together. Vacuum seal the core. Right leg extends, roll it out. And then just from the center, turning just an inch or two to the left with your elbows. Nothing else changes. And then return, lower the foot down and release that. But notice that heat built in your core. And then come on up. From here, we would start to move in bigger ways. This was just a little taste. And a great way to start a movement practice, whether it's yoga or whether you're about to go for a run or a wonderful hike, getting that core and the glutes lit up and getting that neutral pelvis set into your brain is a wonderful way to start your movement. So thank you so much for joining me.